Waukeen enters the hall of the kingdom, where he sees the advisor Drogov standing behind the king Clegane. As he approaches to talk to the advisor and the king, he notices the king is sitting there very still in his throne, not moving, just kind of staring off, as if uninterested in anything around him, not interested to talk, not interested to hear anything, wants nothing. The advisor, though, seems very interested in what Waukeen was doing. So as Waukeen walks up, the advisor, stops him. He's like, "Do you have it? Did you find it?" And Waukeen, of course, is like, "Yes, I did. I brought it with me. I do have it." And the advisor immediately yells, "Everyone out, everyone out," tells everyone to leave the hall. So the public, that was there to watch all of the hearings and all that, they're all leaving. Even the guards are all leaving. Everyone leaves the hall. And as they all exit in such a hurry, Drogov actually wastes no time to run down to meet with Waukeen in the middle of the hall. So as Waukeen is walking up towards the throne where the king is sitting, who also still has shown no interest in what's going on, and Drogov is running from behind where the king was sitting towards Waukeen in the middle of the hall, he starts to feel like something's a little off, something's amiss, and he doesn't know what it is. But he's already started to pull the scroll out from his chest plate, and he's starting to hand it over. And as he goes to hand it over, something's telling him, like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Drogov's wasting no time clearing the hall to get to Waukeen. While all of this is happening, little does anyone know that Channing is actually behind a secret door that is behind the throne, and he's looking out towards the hall. He can see everything going on. He sees King Clegane sitting on the throne. He sees Waukeen walking up through the center of the hall, and he sees Drogov running down to meet with Waukeen. He can hear pretty clearly. And Channing is very excited too, because he's been listening in, and he knows that this scroll brings with it magical properties or abilities where it can heal him, where he's been very, very sick, and he's been on the verge of death many, many times now. So he's really excited because this means a new chance at life, and this is great news. So as he sits there and he waits for all this to happen, and he waits to hear the good news, he sees Drogov running towards Waukeen. Waukeen's reaching out, and right as Waukeen is about to hand Drogov the scroll, Waukeen, feels that pull of saying, like, something's not right. And so he goes to withdraw, and as he goes to withdraw, Drogov already had gotten to him and snatches the scroll from his hand. And as he snatches this scroll from Waukeen's hand, Waukeen tries to kind of play it off like, okay, maybe everything's all right. But everything's pulling at him saying, this isn't right, something's off. And Drogov quickly opens the scroll to read it. And as Drogov is opening the scroll, you see like this anger fill his face, this like fury in his eyes. And he looks up at Waukeen and he goes, "Where is it?" Screaming at the top of his lungs, his voice echoing in the hall. And Waukeen says, "What do you mean? This is the scroll. This is the scroll that I went to get. I got it out of the chest in the cave. This is it. There's nothing else. And I haven't even opened it to read it. I don't know even what's in there." And immediately Drogov starts just screaming, and he grabs his staff and he's slamming it on the ground, and he's like, "There's nothing in it. It's blank. What did you do with the real scroll?" And as he's screaming this and yelling it, Waukeen, puzzled, has no idea what he's talking about. He's like, "This is what you sent me to get. This is what I got." As he's thinking these things, and Drogov is going off, and the king sits there just staring off in the distance, all of a sudden he hears a voice come from behind him. And he looks back and he sees Gregory and Catherine walking into the chambers or into the hall. And he's like, well, what are they doing here? You know, how did they get here? What's going on? As Waukeen stands there in the middle of the hall looking at Drogoff, who's so angry and lashing out the way he is, Catherine's approaching from behind with Gregory. And Catherine continues on to say, the scroll is the correct scroll. However, it chose Waukeen. And that's who it decided to give its power to. Drogoff, looking furious, is like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And Catherine continues on to say, Waukeen's been chosen since before he ever met with you and the king. He was chosen from the time he got a sword when he was a child and his father was killed. His father being a holy knight who fought for the church, who fought for what he believed to be right, who defended his family against an army of soldiers from another kingdom who tried to kill all of his family and him. He fought them off, and he had a sword that was blessed by the church, by a priest, a very, very special priest, who that sword was made with silver and had powers instilled in it. And this sword was then passed down to Waukeen after his father lost his life fighting against this army of soldiers that tried to kill them all. And after he got this sword, everyone noticed that Waukeen had these abilities and these skills that were just so far beyond what normal was. And they watched this from a distance to see what was going to come of it. And as Waukeen grew and turned into the man that he became, and that sword just matched him so well, and they realized there's more going on here. And she tested him whenever he came to get the location of the scroll, and he bested Gregory without any difficulty. And then he got into the forest, and the specters tested Waukeen, and the specters deemed him worthy. They reached into his heart and felt who he was, and they allowed him to move on. And whenever he got to the chest, they had already unlocked the chest because they knew he was worthy, and they wanted him to have that scroll. And when Waukeen got his hands on the scroll also selected him. And it then wrote everything on that scroll into Waukeen. It wrote it into him. He is now the scroll. All of the power, all of the abilities that came with that scroll are now within Waukeen. He is the scroll, and all of the power that came with it is now in him. Drogoff, unable to process this, infuriated, says, well, there's only one way for me to get this power, then I have to kill you. And he grabs his staff and he hits it on the ground, and he starts to conjure up something, some kind of power, and everybody can feel him growing in strength. Catherine and Gregory then stand next to Waukeen as Drogoff starts to summon up this power. Gregory puts his arms up, ready to fight. Catherine puts her hands up as if she's about to start casting spells or something. And as they stand there, preparing for whatever's about to happen, they realize that Drogoff is conjuring up a lot of power, and this guy is way more powerful maybe than they expected. And it was then that Drogoff looks over at Waukeen and casts a fireball with his staff, this huge fireball, the size of him. It would engulf his entire body. And as it's coming, Catherine then casts like this ice ball that just hits it, and this huge explosion that everyone kind of feels, and it kind of knocks them back a little bit. It doesn't knock them down, but it knocks them back a little. And once that fireball and that ice ball collide and it explodes, Waukeen realizes what kind of power is working around them. So now Waukeen is very, very on edge. He's never felt powers like this before. But by the time he even processes what's going on there, Gregory has already ran up to Drogoff and starts attacking Drogoff. And he's just swinging left and right. And Drogoff is just dodging and moving and using his staff to block. And then you realize that Drogoff isn't just some mystical wizard that has a lot of power that he can conjure up and cast, but he's also powerful, very powerful, that he can fight and move and has speed and power as well. It's not so much as just the power that he can cast, but the power of his strength and skill and speed as well. And he's watching Gregory and him go at it. And then finally you see Drogob slam his staff down into the ground, casting this like shockwave that just throws Gregory all the way across the hall. Gregory hits on the other side, rolls, and is out. He realizes Gregory is done. He doesn't know if he's alive. He doesn't know if he's, dead, or if he's just unconscious. He doesn't know what's going on, but Gregory is not moving. By then, you see Catherine already stepping up, and she's casting all of these balls of light at Drogob, and it's just a flurry of these balls just flying at Drogob. Drogob again just deflecting these balls, and then he casts one back at her, this massive ball, and she goes to block it, but it knocks her back, and she falls to the ground and slides as well. And Waukeen just watched all of the people there to support him just get taken out in seconds. And he's like, wow, do I even stand a chance at this point? But he doesn't have time to think about it for too long. But he realizes, I need to get in there, I need to fight. So he keeps his sword up close and runs in and starts fighting. Drogob is just deflecting, dodging, and they seem to be matched tit for tat. Every time Waukeen swings, Drogob either blocks it or deflects or moves, and then Drogob will swing his staff, which has like these metal pieces going through it. So it's like wood, but also metal infused. And he's throwing his staff at Waukeen left and right, swinging, and Waukeen's able to dodge and move and block, and they just keep going, and it's like no one's beating the other. They're just equally as strong, just fast, strong. And then all of a sudden Drogob again, boom, hits his staff on the ground, casting this shockwave type spell that throws Waukeen across the hall and into a pillar. Boom! Waukeen smacks the pillar, slides down, and hits the ground, feeling stunned, feeling, just like out of breath. He's trying to get his wits back about him as Drogob approaches. And as Drogob approaches, he's already kind of like conjuring something. It's like this bluish light that's circling all around his staff. And he's about to cast, and about that time, Waukeen looks over and he sees Channing running from that little secret room behind the throne, where the king still sits, just staring off into the distance, unfazed by anything happening around him. And Channing comes running down and he's yelling, "No, stop!" And as he yells, "No, stop!" Drogob looks at Channing and casts the spell at Channing instead of at Waukeen. And this lightning bolt type of spell just hits Channing square in the chest, knocking him back, burn marks all over his chest, instantly is on the ground, unmoving. And at the same time that happens, Waukeen jumps up with his sword and goes to stab Drogob. However, Drogob still deflects it, hits Waukeen, knocks him back. They both stand up, and as they're coming at each other, Drogob just starts casting all of these bolts and balls of light and all these types of power at him. But somehow Waukeen is able to actually cut through all of these. Drogob, being shocked and surprised, doesn't understand how this is possible when he's casting spells at him. And somehow Waukeen's able to actually cut through the spells without actually being hit by them. And he realizes he's just literally nullifying every time a spell is hit. And as he's approaching, you see Waukeen's hand starting to light up. It even starts to light up his sword. And as he gets closer, he throws his hand forward with the sword kind of pointing towards Drogob. And this beam of light just showers at him, just floods towards him. Almost like it's water, but it's more than that. It's powerful, it's strong, but it's got like a heat to it. and it hits Drogoff so hard it launches him into the air, and you watch his body start to slowly sizzle, and then you see like it starts to like turn to dust as it's growing. So you see it hit from the middle, and as it goes outward towards his limbs, everything starts to like burn and then turn to dust. And then suddenly you just see the dust just kind of fall to the ground and shower everywhere. It was then that they realized just how powerful Waukeen has become, because Catherine and Gregory were awake at this point and kind of saw the ending of that. However, as soon as Drogoff was hit with this powerful spell that literally, turned him to dust, you see the king start to wake up. And he looks over and he sees his son Channing on the ground. And when he sees Channing on the ground, he runs over and he's crying. Tears are streaming down his face. And he's like, my boy, please, my boy, save my boy. And Catherine and Gregory at this point had walked up to where Waukeen is, and Waukeen was looking at Channing on the ground, and he was like, man, I want to help. I want to do something. I don't know what to do. He's got this huge burn mark on his chest. His clothes are burnt all over, and, he realizes this might be beyond him. And Catherine, standing next to him, says, you have the power now to save him. And Waukeen's confused. How do I have the power to save him? And she's like, just trust me. So Waukeen goes over to Channing, kneels over him, and kind of puts his hand over his chest, and he has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea if this will work or not. But he puts his hand on his chest, and when he puts his hand on his chest, he feels this warmth. A light starts to glow from his hand, and he feels this warmth grow through his body and get to his hand, and he feels it go from his hand to Channing. And as this warmth kind of grows from Waukeen to Channing, Channing starts to like kind of come to, his eyes open, and he takes a big breath, and he kind of looks around, and he sees his dad, and they start to embrace. They're hugging, and you see Waukeen just kind of looking at him like, I can't believe this just happened. I can't believe I just did that. And Catherine, he looks back at her, and she's smiling at him with a very soft smile. Gregory looks very, very tired. He seems hurt. He's kind of holding himself like this, and he kind of smiles and gives him a nod. And Waukeen then, looks back at Channing and the king. And the king, with tears running down his face, holding his son, he looks over at Waukeen, and he puts his hand on Waukeen's shoulder, and he nods, like saying, thank you, so much for giving me my boy back. A few months later, after this whole thing that has happened with Drogoff, the advisor, and the king, being bewitched by him and controlled, and Channing going through this sickness that he had, and, Waukeen going out on this journey. Shortly after, once this is all resolved, you see the kingdom flourishing. You see bright blue skies, and everyone seems to be happy and walking around the town. Channing is outside playing with other kids his age, healthy and thriving. The king seems to be ruling the kingdom the way a king should. Everyone is very happy with the way things are going. And then you look to find where Waukeen is, and you see him on his horse riding off towards the next town. And you realize that Waukeen's never going to be satisfied. He's never going to be done, because he feels like he has so much more to give, and there's so much more out there that he can't stop. So though he has done so much for this kingdom and so much for this king, he's on to find the next quest in his journey in life.